Welcome to California in Focus. I'm David Mastio. Today, we're talking about Shake Shack and the closing of 6 California stores. I'd rather talk about whether their burgers are the greatest, but I guess we'll focus on the public policy. Joining me today is the Center Square's Kenneth Schrupp, California reporter. Kenneth, thanks for joining us today. What's going on?
Hey, David. Shake Shack announced an SEC filing that it's closing 9 locations nationwide. These are its first non-construction closures ever. 6 of those 9 closures are in California, which means that there's something really wrong going on with California's business climate. What they said about these locations in general, not speaking of California, but just in general, that these shacks are not projected to provide acceptable returns in the foreseeable future. The context for this is California adopted a $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers in April of this year, which has resulted in a number of chains leaving California for elsewhere, including Rubio's and Blaze Pizza. Some of them explicitly do say California's wage laws and business environment are driving these changes, while others don't really try to get involved in the politics and just quietly move on.
So we heard from the governor's office that they're upset with our story. Tell me about that.
Yes, they asked for a headline change and the removal of the word claim, and I'll explain more about that later. Number one is they did not like that we put Shake Shack shuttering 6 California locations after $20 fast food and minimum wage in the headline, because they think that there's no connection between the fast food minimum wage and the shutdowns, simply because they didn't actually cite it in the SEC filing. It is true that this happened afterwards, and it is also true that labor costs are rising when they're already very high, and that commercial rents are quite high. So if you combine both of those with declining or stable consumer demand, you have lower profitability. So it would make sense that 2/3 of all of their closures are in California, which is adopting higher wages than elsewhere. The governor's office claims that 11,000 fast food jobs have been added since the new minimum wage into effect, and they cite Bureau of Labor Statistics data. BLS just announced that it is revising all of its data in the year before that there were 818,000 fewer jobs than expected to have been added. This suggests that their data is constantly being downward revised, and we've been seeing this quarter after quarter. They keep revising all of their jobs data downward. Let's also look into what's happening in California. The California Legislative Analyst's Office noted that state monthly job surveys of businesses have, quote, routinely overestimated job growth in the state, end quote, since 2022, which is when private employment peaked. The Legislative Analyst's Office, which is a nonpartisan government-funded office, said that their fiscal policy analyst wrote, once preliminary survey figures are finalized using comprehensive payroll records, the figures have been revised downward by an average of 30,000 jobs each month. So, if the assumption is that 11,000 jobs have been added since April of this year in the fast food sector, there's a very good chance that those will not be the final numbers and they'll be downward revised significantly, possibly resulting in jobs lost. We learned very late into the game that California has lost 154,000 net private sector jobs since September of 2022, while gaining 361,000 public and public sector supported jobs. This suggests that when we're looking at the state of California employment, things are not heading in the right direction. Newsom's 2024-2025 budget closed a $47 billion budget shortfall through a combination of spending cuts, spending shifts, and spending deferrals, which means that that's $47 billion less that is being spent on hiring more government employees. If we're losing private sector jobs net since September 2022, a trend that's probably continuing, because people are getting laid off left and right and not getting rehired for jobs. Bad time to be unemployed in California right now. And we have government spending pulling back. If government spending is the only thing that's been propelling any job growth in California since September of 2022, this cutback means we're likely to see a decrease in government jobs, or at least government hiring, in the medium to long term, because we just don't have the revenue to support that anymore. So I do contest the governor's office saying that I can't say claim, because yes, this is a claim until we have the final numbers in, because they keep getting revised downward.
part of the issue that we keep hearing from the governor's office about this is not about anything we wrote today, but it's about 2028 or 2032. There's nothing more fundamental to a governor's claim to higher office than the job growth that he produced as governor. Is that your take on this?
Guess what? I received an email from the governor's deputy communications director asking for a change in an article weeks after it was published. And the reason he said? Well, the internet is forever.
Kenneth, thanks for joining me today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.